Hello. For context, I don't usually do stuff like this, but I was streaming earlier, and I had somebody come into my stream and was like asking some basic questions like what's a good character to run on Steel Path and stuff like that. What's a good secondary weapon, which was a very interesting question, and because I thoroughly played the game, I mean, I've been playing for 8 years. For context, I've been playing 8 years. I used to play on Xbox, so the game was completely different. But now I play on PC, obviously, as I record and I stream a lot more. There's like 9 hours, and I'm uploading one of my streams right now. I've been playing for like a while, before operators were even in the game, before Drifter, even before like a lot of like super popular frames right now. Pretty much all of like like 3 of the top 4 frames weren't really that, like, weren't even in the game. Wisp wasn't. Who else is there? Wisp, Saren, Mesa, and who's the 4th one? I actually don't remember the 4th one. Overframe is a super good resource for seeing stuff like that. But I've been playing for a while, World on Fire, Ember, and all of that, and a really like curious thing popped up into my brain due to that person stopping in, which I appreciated, which was like Warframe and its meta, which is not, it's not really that good. In the clip that is playing behind me, as you can see, unless you're an audio listener, I'll explain. I'm using the Archiplasmor with Nyx Prime. I recently got her, and I'm loving playing her. It's a little bit goofy, and I've basically made use of her original kit. I haven't subsumed anything over it. If you're newer to the game, subsuming is an entirely different topic. But I have managed to make her pretty extremely viable in a lot of scenarios. I've done some long Steel Path with her because I've just enjoyed playing her. But that like brought it to my mind because a lot of the people I was playing with today, even including in this clip, there's a Vault, Wukong, and a Gauss. And there's nothing wrong with playing those characters, but it does like really beg the question. There are some frames that people won't play regardless. Ureli is one of those. I have an entire video I need to make about that one. I have to script it. It's going to be a long one. Ureli, Loki's another good example. You see, some people say Loki is still good, and I feel like that's cope. But overall, a lot of frames are viable. The problem is when you start talking to people about what is meta and what is viable, a lot of people dismiss more than half of the roster, I feel, and also dismiss a lot of weapons. Currently, the reigning champion of weapons are any Incarnon weapons. Felarx, which I've fallen victim to using because it's so strong. Like, you can absolutely decimate entire, like, I think the other day I had like practically one tapped in Acolyte in a high level Steel Path lobby, which is good, but it also, we're back to like what defines the meta, and right now Incarnon weapons are going absolutely nuts. Some of them are like kind of iffy. The Bratton, I use the Bratton Prime Incarnon, and while I have a Riven for it, and I have it somewhat like respectably built, it's not as good as somebody just walking up with like the Felarx and just literally one-tapping them, because the Incarnon is trying to compensate for the fact that the weapon itself isn't strong. Soma is also another victim of that. I tried to use Soma Prime again, in which I had an insufferable time. Maybe my build's wrong, but if you go into Overframe, all of the builds that are there are super old. Like, almost, like, 4 years old for any of the builds, which is a very interesting thing, because they basically changed how crits worked around there, how slash and all of that kind of stuff worked to make it more, you know, not oppressive. And now we're running into the problem again where, like, there's no prevailing meta, but a lot of fun frames aren't being used because why play any like interesting frame when you can just play Saren, Gauss, Wisp, Wisp players are the weirdest players because the other day I was running in a lobby where I was playing Valman. We had a Hydroid and a Zephyr as well. We were just kind of like forcing CC to move the enemies faster. And the Wisp in our lobby looked and said, "Oh, this is a bad team comp," as if they weren't playing Wisp with the Ignis Wraith in a Steel Path Fissure lobby, which was bewildering. But that just goes to show how like the meta is like kind of weird nowadays. People don't play the frames they want to play anymore, I feel. Like a lot of people, like some people do. Like Wukong players will keep playing Wukong. That's just fact, even though he got nerfed to the dirt. And I don't blame them for nerfing them because of AFK strats. But it's like idle hunting kind of mentality has been trickling over, where we used to like play pretty much whoever. Like a lot of players used to play, I don't know, Loki. Like I ran into an Ashe player on the stream tonight, which was nuts to me because I thought they had gone extinct. I have an Ashe build that I used for a little while, but it was nuts to me that somebody else just completely in the wild was playing Ashe just for some reason, which I'm not used to. I'm used to seeing Wisp. I'm used to seeing like any giga meta character or even weapons. Like the other night I was like, oh, if they ever add a Nikana or Incarnon, the entirety of like melee is just gone because it's just going to be that single weapon unless you're doing something unique. I've been using the Prisma Oma because it's a super unique weapon. It has base electricity, a decently high crit chance, crit damage, and status chance. It is a very fun weapon to use, especially in conjunction with Nautilus, which I'll be making an entirely different video on about like how that works. But for a good portion of that, it's impossible to like make people decide to play something different, which is insane because Warframe has so many cool characters, and yet we're kind of being limited to only a few of them with high tier content. Necrocells, which I should talk about too, only really want you to use like armor strip survival characters, which obviously works with Nyx, but like I tried to do it on any other character, even Mirage, which is a completely different debate on if Mirage fits the gameplay anymore, because you can't use her in Necrocells, which is infuriating. But if half of the roster can't play in Necrocells, what is the point of really having them? Like, you can do a lot in Necrocells. I mean, I've made Nyx work, I made Haro work because I use Pillage Haro. But I have to use Armor Strip for it, which, yeah, there's Unaru, which is amazing. I love Unaru, personally. But what if somebody just doesn't want to do that? And Warframe's meta has been so... Once we nerfed explosive weapons, Kuva Brahma, Kuva Zar, we kind of like lost some of the really cool things we had. Like, yeah, I'm not saying that they were good and healthy for the game, I definitely do think we should have at least had them. I think they got hit a little too hard. You don't see them anymore. Like, you don't. And it's nuts to me because now we're kind of stuck with either you bring Felarx, Fenmore, or some super niche build that you have lined up, which is cool to see, but in the end, like, Tennokai got released, and now Melee's just stronger now. It's insanely powerful. There's literally no downside. If you know how to play the game, there's no downside to running a melee build anymore, which a lot of characters with Helminth, you can subsume a lot of survivability onto characters, or you just, like, Kullervo is only built for melee combat, and he's died off, unfortunately, which is very sad. I see very, very little of him because he's a really cool unit. Like, he's a really cool character to play, but nobody wants to play him anymore because, fun fact, like, he's niche. He doesn't work on all content. And that works directly against him, and it's kind of frustrating to see, because every Warframe is viable. The problem is if you go on Overframe, which again, it's a great resource, but they don't care about frames like Nyx, Ureli, like some frames that genuinely are fun to play, but are niche and require you to have experience, know what you're doing, and not, like, obviously I have 8 years in the game. I've been doing this for a while, and I'm going to continue to do this. But like, meta characters just aren't fun for me. I find very niche, like, I've made Ureli do like a 2-hour survival at one point. Completely fine, no problems. She's really good, but the problem is she's niche, and people don't like that because they don't feel like the commitment is worth it. And, like, yeah, I see that. Like, you play Wisp and you get value instantly, just subsume her for like Roar, and there you go. You're perfectly set for literally everything the game throws at you. But the problem is when everybody's running Wisp, like Wisp Prime came out, and like for 2 weeks I felt like I couldn't go into a mission without 2 Wisps. And like, that's frustrating, you know? Because we lost build diversity. Like, Kullervo came out and it was really cool because, like, yeah, everybody was running him, but he's such a unique character. Saren's still on top. Granted, she's become a little niche since they changed how elemental damage works and stuff like that, except she's still extremely strong. But, like, you don't see Ember anymore. Ember used to rock the world with Saren, and now in order to run Ember, you have to run a pretty, like, specific setup. And it is very unfortunate to see the character that, like, the World on Fire, like, broke the game, changed how it was fundamentally thought, like, how you can play it, and nuke entire maps is just gone. Like, obviously there's the line of sight changes, which hurt a lot of frames as well, so that makes a lot of them a lot harder to use as well. But Warframe's meta is just kind of like, it's kind of stale right now. We don't got like a lot to go with. So, like, there's some cool stuff going on. There's some cool weapons, cool frames. Like, personally, I love the Archiplasmor. I do like the Felarx, but again, it's absolutely broken, and it literally shreds every piece of content because there's a 50% chance you literally deal 20 times damage on every pellet, and it's a really good status weapon. So you just throw a status chance on that, so you get 40 times damage, or 4 times damage off of every single status effect, and suddenly, bam, everything is dead. And Laden's the same way, Fenmore's kind of the same way as well. Like, I know they're late game weapons, but when you get to late game and you get those, it just kind of shatters it for a little while until you start like going, well, I don't want to use it anymore. Which, if you look at a really like one of the strongest weapons in the game, and you have to say, I don't want to use it because it is super powerful, there's a kind of problem there. Like, I don't play a lot of Saren much anymore because I looked and was like, I'm bored of it. I'm bored of it, and that's why I started playing niche characters. I play Nyx, I play Irelia, I play even Trinity. I would say Trinity's pretty niche nowadays, other than like EV nuking, and they removed that pretty much instantly with Marked for Death, because Marked for Death used to like clear rooms because it was super strong. You just went like extremely low duration because Marked for Death doesn't have a time. You crank up your strength and range, and then you just like Mark for Death and then EV, and everything around them dies. They removed that like really fast, which is annoying because it was a really cool strat for Trinity, but they removed it for other reasons, which is like the Kuva Brahma, the Kuva Chakur, which the Kuva Chakur is really good, but again, people don't use it because it's niche. It's a lot harder to do. So that all being said, I think genuinely there's not like I like the meta for Warframe is just kind of extremely stale. We're not seeing a lot of build diversity anymore. Overframe's pretty much oversaturated. You go onto that website and there's some people that make really good builds for the new characters. Like Dagoth has a few cool builds, but again, when do you see her? She has built-in armor strip. She has built-in viral. You'd think people would play her, but they don't. Which is nuts, because the Volop Viola that inflicts viral is still an extremely high pick, and now we have Nautilus, which I'm going to make an entire video on as well, because he's really cool. And that's the problem, is we don't, like, unless they have explicit util in a specific area, we don't see it. Like, the Smina Kavet's still obviously the best because it has the double drop rate. And also the guaranteed crit. But, like, where do you see Carrier? What about Worm? Death Cube? They're useless. They don't have anything useful anymore. Carrier is really good, but now you just open the Auxilia slot of your primary and throw in an ammo mutation. Fixed it. There you go. And that's if it's not an Incarnon weapon. Then you don't have to worry about it at all because, fun fact, you gain back the ammo while you're in Incarnon form, so it doesn't matter. Or even Dispensary, because Dispensary is one of the biggest subsumes, and so is Nourish, which I have problems with both of those, because Nourish removes like half of build intrigue, because you just throw that on there and go, well, it works, and there you go. So what's the entire point of that? It inflicts viral. It gives you a lot of energy really fast, and it's stagger counter attack that also inflicts viral. Grendel needed a buff, and now every frame has that buff. So we need like something cool. I would like to see more build diversity, because as it stands now, our build diversity pretty much lays like barren. Like, people are using interesting weapons, but nobody's using interesting frames. Like, the new frame, the new frame is really interesting. I've only seen like 2 people run them, and that's not even in Sedna. Like, I've seen 2 people the entire time, probably maybe 3, that have played Corvex. So I feel like we have a disconnect there, and we're just kind of running out of like niche things that would make the game fun for everybody without it being overbearingly strong. And that's the duality. How many Archon shards do you have in it? Well, I only have 2. Well, then you're not playing the game right, you know? But anyway, I'm done ranting. So thank you. I'm probably going to record a Nautilus video after this, obviously stream. But I want to talk about Nautilus and interesting ways to make a non-CC frame into a CC frame. So, thank you for watching.